Welcome to our in-depth explainer on the expansion of federal interior immigration enforcement. In this video, we will break down how strategy is shifting into major metropolitan centers, why specialized units and equipment are being used, what the legal thresholds look like away from the border, and how communities can stay informed about their civil liberties. We will transition step by step from the operational tactics to the surrounding controversy and then to practical rights information, concluding with a balanced look at the ongoing national debate. Here is the roadmap for today's video. First, we will outline the interior enforcement shift. Next, we will examine the tactical approach and its visibility in urban areas. Then, we will consider the controversy over militarization. After that, we will summarize key legal principles that differ from border operations. We will also present practical community guidance, including documentation and rights awareness. We will illustrate concepts using multiple diagrams and conclude with brief quizzes to help reinforce your understanding. Before we proceed, a critical note. Nothing in this video should be taken as legal advice. Laws and policies can vary by jurisdiction and change over time. If you have specific questions about your situation, you should consult a licensed attorney. With that important context, let's move forward to understand the shifting strategy. The federal enforcement approach is expanding from traditional border zones to include operations deep within the country's cities. The stated goals include increasing visibility, proactively disrupting undocumented populations and associated networks, and widening the scope of targets. Cities not historically associated with intensive specialized operations, such as Charlotte and New Orleans, are becoming focal points. With this context, we can now explore the specific tactics involved. Operationally, agencies are deploying specialized teams, traditionally reserved for high-risk missions, into metropolitan environments far from the border. The approach includes high-visibility arrests in neighborhoods that previously saw sporadic or limited activity. Agencies cite the need for advanced resources, such as armored vehicles and specialized agents, to enhance officer safety and manage potential risks associated with targeting fugitives or organized smuggling operations. The target sets may include individuals with prior removal orders, criminal warrants, or links to smuggling networks. Now let's visualize the typical flow of an interior operation to better understand the moving parts. This diagram illustrates a typical interior operation pipeline. It starts with intelligence gathering and case development. Next, a risk assessment determines whether a specialized team or a standard enforcement unit is appropriate. Both routes converge on detailed operational planning. Legal review follows, focusing on probable cause and any necessary warrants. If cleared, the operation proceeds to execution, resulting in arrests or seizures as applicable. Afterwards, processing and documentation occur, and teams conduct a post-operation review that may include consideration of community impact. With the workflow in mind, let's step into the debate around equipment and visibility. Supporters argue that elevated risk profiles justify specialized teams and protective equipment, emphasizing officer safety and mission success. They maintain that trained units can handle complex scenarios more predictably, and that visible presence may deter organized criminal activity. Critics, however, contend that introducing armored vehicles and specialized gear into urban neighborhoods amounts to militarization. They worry that this blurs distinctions between local policing and federal border enforcement, erodes community trust, and amplifies fear. We will now place this debate on a timeline to see how such strategies can evolve. This timeline will depict 4 phases. First, the policy is announced and resources are reallocated. Second, pilot deployments begin in selected interior cities to test tactics and coordination. Third, operations expand in scope and visibility, potentially incorporating specialized equipment and teams. Fourth, outcomes are reviewed. Legal challenges and community impacts are assessed, and adjustments are considered. This cyclical process continues as agencies respond to feedback, litigation, and evolving priorities. Now let's turn to the legal basics that often differ between border and interior contexts. Key legal concepts include probable cause, which is a reasonable basis to believe someone committed an offense or is removable under immigration law. Warrants can be administrative or judicial, and they serve different purposes. They are not interchangeable. Interior operations typically require different legal thresholds than those used at border checkpoints. Consent to enter or search must be voluntary and limited to the scope agreed upon. Finally, Thorough documentation of interactions is critical for ensuring accuracy and protecting rights. Next, we will compare typical requirements at the border and in the interior. This table contrasts typical authorities and thresholds. Near the border and lawful checkpoints, the government generally holds broader authority for routine questioning and inspections. In the interior, entering a private home usually requires either consent or a judicial warrant, unless exigent circumstances exist. Administrative warrants typically do not authorize entry into private residences. For workplaces or third-party premises, consent or appropriate warrants are often required, with the scope limited by ownership and access rights. Vehicle stops must meet constitutional standards, and public arrests require probable cause. Up next, we will outline practical community guidance. These steps provide general information about interacting with law enforcement. Remain calm and ask for identification. Politely ask if you are free to leave. If you are, calmly walk away. If officers request to enter a home, ask to see a judicial warrant signed by a judge. Administrative warrants typically do not authorize home entry. Do not consent to searches you do not understand, and clearly state that you do not consent. Document key details of any interaction, including date, time, location, and identifying information. If stopped while driving, comply with lawful instructions, and provide required documents where applicable. For personal situations, consult a qualified attorney or trusted legal aid. Share accurate information responsibly within your community. Now let's map the key stakeholders in this evolving landscape. This mind map will center on interior enforcement and branch to federal agencies, local governments, communities, courts, advocacy organizations, and individuals directly affected. Each node reflects concerns. Federal agencies emphasize safety and compliance. Local governments weigh autonomy and cooperation. Communities value trust, safety, and rights. Courts enforce legal standards through warrants and due process. Advocacy groups offer education and legal support, and targets or defendants focus on exercising rights and obtaining counsel. Sub-branches will note resource allocation, operational visibility, and community impacts. To reinforce these concepts, let's take a brief quiz. Question: in interior home entry operations, which is typically required absent exigent circumstances, options are A, an administrative warrant alone, B, consent or a judicial warrant signed by a judge, C, no warrant or consent is needed if equipment is specialized, and D, a verbal authorization from an agent supervisor. You may pause the video now to consider your answer. We will discuss the correct choice in the next section. The correct answer is B. In general, administrative warrants alone do not authorize agents to enter private residences. Either voluntary consent or a judicial warrant signed by a judge is typically required unless exigent circumstances apply. Question: critics of interior militarization most commonly argue that it does what? Options are A, improves community trust, B, blurs lines between domestic policing and border security, C, eliminates the need for legal warrants, and D, reduces officer safety concerns to zero. You may pause the video now to reflect. We will reveal the answer next. The correct answer is B. Critics contend that the use of specialized, military-style equipment and tactics in urban environments can blur the distinction between domestic policing and border security, potentially undermining community trust. To recap, interior enforcement is becoming more visible in cities. Specialized units target higher-risk individuals, which raises questions about militarization. Legal thresholds differ substantially in the interior compared with the border, making warrants and consent especially important. Community education and accurate documentation of interactions are vital. Finally, the debate over national security and civil liberties is ongoing and will likely intensify as strategies evolve. In summary, the expansion of interior enforcement is reshaping how operations occur in American cities. Supporters emphasize safety and deterrence, while critics stress civil liberties and community trust. As these strategies evolve, courts, communities, and local governments will shape outcomes through oversight, cooperation, and litigation. Above all, individuals should stay informed, document interactions, and consult qualified legal professionals for specific advice. Thank you for watching. If you found this information valuable, please like the video, share it with others, and subscribe for more balanced explainers. We welcome your questions and perspectives in the comments. Your engagement helps others learn and promotes informed discussion.